Can I ask you to be seated and we can start the afternoon session? I hope you all had a good lunch and that you feel reasonably energized for a very interesting discussion this afternoon, which will have a focus on INTOSAI region. Then we have tea break, and then the second part of the afternoon we will focus on the quality control and quality assurance systems within INTOSAI and the INTOSAI regions. And we will hear a presentation from the global report to that effect. And at the end of the day, there will also be a signing ceremony. That is a cliffhanger, so stay put once we've concluded the other part of the day. But now turning to the first part, the regional forum. In 2016 at the Abu Dhabi Congress, INTOSAI adopted a framework for regional professionalism that was developed by the CBC in collaboration with INTOSAI regions and other stakeholders such as the IDI. The purpose of the framework is to assist regional organizations to attain the highest level of professionalism and service to their members by providing a reference guide that regions can use as the foundation for their strategic planning. In 2015, already, the CBC created the Regional Forum for Capacity Development, in line with INTOSAI's cross-cutting priorities and the strategic objectives defined for the CBC in the INTOSAI Strategic Plan 2017 to 2022. That forum works to achieve INTOSAI's goal of promoting the development of capabilities and professional capacities of independent-sized and regional organizations. And in particular, it supports CBC's key strategy of providing a regional community of practice to share and address issues related to regional capacity development and regional professionalism at a cross-regional and strategic level. Following the adoption in 2016 by INTOSAI of the framework for regional professionalism, for one of the regions to share with the CBC members and stakeholders where they find themselves on their journey for enhancement. And this year, it's the turn of ARABUSAI, which is quite appropriate, seeing that our meeting is being hosted by a member SAI of ARABUSAI. We are therefore joined by two colleagues from the SAI of Tunisia, who is also the General Secretariat of ARABUSAI, to present to us ARABUSAI's perspectives of moving together towards regional professionalism. And shortly we will hear Mr. Murad Ben Ghazuma and Ms. Hayer Gir. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, when the General Secretary, CBC Secretariat mailed and informed the participant to this meeting about the contribution of ARABUSAI to this meeting, a word was used, which is journey. You don't see this wording on the screen, but I think this is a good start to consider that moving towards professionalism is some sort of journey, and I consider this wording as brilliant because it removes a lot of pressure out of our shoulders, because as we consider any process, a journey, a lot of flexibility is put into the process, and a lot of risks can be undergone. And this is why we are really considering rephrasing and reshaping our project into a journey. Let me be honest before I get started. When Arabuzai began to consider and to make decision to move towards professionalism, it was a logic response to an everlasting problem since its inception. I mean, the inception of the Arabuzai, because we had always the feeling that there's some sort of gap as compared to other regions who seem to be a little bit ahead of us, and then as compared to the best practices implemented by INTOSAI bodies. And let me put that straight also, it's not the first initiative that Arabuzai has undertaken in order to move or to improve its professionalism. A number of other initiatives have been already a common understanding as a participant in this room to check whether or not we do have the same understanding of the background we will be using as spaces in order to discuss the professionalism issue at regional level. Then we will be explaining to you the Arabuzai perspective on how this process is gradual and ongoing if any region is considering moving to regional professionalism. Afterwards, we'll be discussing the way Arabuzai is assessing professionalism in terms of approach, challenges and lessons learned, and this is the most part that we would like to share with you during this meeting. And at the end, we will be brief, we'll provide you with a brief insights regarding strengthening of Arabuzai General Secretariat before we conclude with the region needs basic training intervention. Of course, we certainly have the same background regarding professionalism. You might certainly have read this definition of professionalism. It's an ongoing process, and it covers both individuals and organization. And it's not only a question of expertise, it's always a question of independence, competence, ethical behavior, and the main element that we would like to outline based on this definition is professionalism standards. I hope we have the same background in this regard. We started also from the Abu Dhabi Declaration in 2016, which highlighted the importance of enhancing global and regional professionalism to support the continual professional development of SAIs, as well as the role played by INTOSAI regional organizations in this regard. This is the main, and this is the first starting point of our journey, as described earlier. Well, we, as a region, consider that moving towards professionalism is a gradual and ongoing process. It's not just a project or activity to be implemented, because it takes a number of years. We are not intending to move to professionalism in 3 or 5 years. This is an ongoing and everlasting project or activity. Second of all, steps and duration of any regional professionalization process, many other regions' business model, and we agree to the fact that there's no unique and good business model. And every region has to look first at its its business model before starting thinking about the way it is going to assess its professionalism. Arabuzai and Arabuzai cannot have the same interests, and they cannot have the same approach when assessing the professionalism, because they do have a different business model. We don't have the same, we don't do the same technical efforts provided by Arabuzai. We do have a different business model, which is currently evolving. So this is a first key issue that I would like to outline in my presentation. Second of all, Arabuzai is using the CBC framework for regional professionalism as an assessment tool and also as a management guide, because there are a set number of activities we are currently striving to implement based on this framework. So this is a framework we consider for being both assessment framework and management guide. We set out some sort of a gradual process, but this is the INTOSAI perspective. It's not a model to be implemented by any other region without, once again, being linked to the business model. We started with risk assessment, which highlighted a gap, some sort of gaps as compared to other INTOSAI bodies, INTOSAI region. As I said before, we considered ourselves a little bit let's say other regions are a little bit ahead of us, and there was also a gap as regards to international best practices. And in following this risk analysis, we identified some sort of mitigation method that we translated into strategic planning that defines actions and activities. The third step was conducting a professionalism evaluation, in the light of which there would be executive recommendation that we would translate into concrete steps, and then after these steps have been will be implemented, we have to measure progress and follow up. And this is why this is a gradual and ongoing and cyclical process. This is not a model that we pitch for every one of you. It is just the way INTOSAI is considered, and having professionalism process, and give us at the end a list of mitigation measures to be taken, which have been translated lately into 5 cross-cutting priorities. Mr. Mohammed Al-Dusar, who is chairing the INTOSAI Strategic Plan Committee, is now working on translating this strategic plan into operational work plan, and will provide you with a copy of this strategic plan. But as you can notice, there are 3 cross-cutting priorities at the end: the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, who are dealing with professionalism. And this is why we are going to just take a look on these 3 cross-cutting issues. I'm not going to read all these. I just would like to outline the 2 levels: the results at SAI level and results at INTOSAI level or regional level. So for each priority relating to professionalism, we tried to distinguish between the 2 levels, the SAI level and the regional level. And this is, you can just take a look on this document, because it would be provided this document on soft format within the documentation of this meeting. And it's the same thing then for the 2nd priority, relating to assistant members in implementation of standard, and also in improving the organization capacity and governance of the regional organization. And once again, as you can see, there are 2 different levels: the SAI level and the regional level for each priority. And then as I explained before, the first step was to translate mitigation level into priorities and take into account the professionalism requirement. And this was first step. Second step that allowed us to move to a 3rd step, which is, as you can see it right here. Now we are moving on the 3rd step, which is how to assess the professionalization of the region, and we are currently implementing and taking steps in order to assess our professionalism. And for that, we set out some sort of evaluation assignment that my colleague is in charge of steering and following, and this is why I'm giving her the floor, so she can explain in more details this core and very much important step.
Thank you. I want to share with you the experience of INTOSAI regarding the evaluation of its professionalism. So currently, Arabuzai is in the middle of the planning phase of the first ever region professionalism assessment. The purpose of this evaluation is to determine the range of services that Arabuzai must provide to its members, as well as the best ways to manage resources to achieve its objective, and also analyze operational and strategic process, identify risks, deficiencies, and need in order to operationalize its strategic plan to improve the organization's performance and to support its capability. So, what will be the methodology to be followed by the evaluation team in this regard? The evaluation team are expected to prepare an inception report containing an evaluation framework, detailed evaluation question, and an evaluation work plan. This evaluation is expected to include document review, survey, and interviews with key external and internal stakeholders. Also, they should take into consideration appropriate measures for collecting data in cases where sensitive or confidential issues are addressed, and also avoid presenting information that may be harmful to some stakeholders group. Now, which evaluation framework will we adopt to do that evaluation? The evaluation framework should be based on INTOSAI framework for regional professionalism, which was adopted by CBC in 2016. We decided to move away from relying exclusively on one single framework to multiple approaches methodology, and based on the INTOSAI CBC professional framework, Arabuzai has to set out a detailed framework with inspiration from IDI experience and other INTOSAI region self-assessment inputs. A small focus group was set up with Arabuzai E and IDI to set detailed terms of reference and framework against which Arabuzai's evaluation